Do you recognize one of the grandest ships that ever carried the British flag?
Georgic is the first big ship to be launched from a British shipyard.
She had a wonderful war record, sinking 2 enemy submarines and carrying thousands of troops in safety. They called her the Old Reliable.
Despite being famous for a lack of competition, shipping lines still operated between Canada and Britain. One of the many shipping lines on this... I'm sorry, Past Dylan, did you just say one of many shipping lines? Didn't you literally not 2 seconds before saying that say that there wasn't a lot of competition on that route? God's sakes, I'm so grateful for proof watching. Jesus. Route was the Cunard line, who, despite the lack of competition on the route, decided to still one-up every other shipping line, leading them to design a new trio of ships. These ships are to be called the Andania, the Orania, and the Orania. These ships were designed to dominate the route they served on, but little did they know of the misfortune that would await them. As these ships were supposed to look pretty much the exact same on the inside, I'll cover their interiors in one section. Now, these 3 ships had an interesting class system, as, unlike most of Cunard's ships of the time, they would only cater to a 2nd and 3rd class. Now, as for their lounges, they were to feature huge open spaces with what I can only assume is a glass skylight letting natural light flood in. There were writing rooms, and these writing rooms were basic yet comfy, and the same goes for their smoking rooms, which had a fireplace in the middle. Now, these ships were to be powered by 2 quadruple expansion engines which drove 2 propellers, giving them a surface speed of 15 knots. The Andania's construction process was relatively uneventful, being launched on the 22nd of March 1913 and completed on the 13th of July in the same year, leaving the next day on her maiden voyage, beginning what would prove to be a very short peacetime career, as in August of the next year she was pulled from passenger service and requisitioned for wartime service thanks to Germany's love of going to war. She was converted into a troop ship, transporting Canadian troops to the front line. She did this until 1915, when she took a quick break from transporting troops to house German POWs, after which she'd go back to being a troop transport until 1916, when she was returned to passenger service. Despite the end of her war service, she wasn't safe yet, as on the 27th of January 1918, whilst on a voyage from New York, she was torpedoed by U-46, and almost immediately after she began to list. Some ships did try to save her, but it was too late, and a few hours after being struck by the torpedo, she slipped beneath the waves, with the loss of 7 crew members, bringing the number of Andania-class liners sunk in World War I counter up to a solid 1. Hopefully her sisters have better luck. The second ship of this class was to be called the Arania. Her construction process was uneventful, and by December of 1913 she was ready to begin what would be her short career, as a few months into her life the First World War broke out, leading to her being requisitioned by the British government. She, like her older sister, was converted into a troop ship, where she would transport troops for the Gallipoli campaign and into Bombay, modern-day Mumbai. Unfortunately, her career would be cut short, as in 1916 she decided to do a Britannic and struck a mine in the English Channel by a place that I'm not going to try pronouncing. Her captain initially tried saving her, but unfortunately this failed, and eventually the order was given to abandon the ship, and shortly after she capsized and sunk. Her wreck now lies on her port side at a depth of 36 meters down. This means that the number of ships of the Andania class that were sunk in World War I counter is now a solid 2. Hopefully the final ship of the class will make it out, right? Oh god. The final ship of this class was called the Orania, and if that name sounds familiar, that's because it's not the first ship I've covered to bear that name, which, fun fact, the one that I have covered before is the shortest episode of Maritime Monday to date. But anyways, back to the second Orania. as she would never have a peacetime career. Due to the outbreak of World War I, she was finally launched on the 16th of July 1916 and was completed as a troop ship for wartime service. She would transport troops across the North Atlantic until the 2nd of August 1918, which, fun fact, is exactly 105 years ago as of writing this, when, while she was sailing across the coast of Northern Ireland, a German U-boat saw the Orania and thought she was the bomb, literally, and fired a torpedo at her, which struck her, causing the Orania to sink. As she sunk, she took 9 crew members with her, bringing the ships of the Andania class that sunk in World War I counter up to a solid 3. Jesus Christ, these ships are unlucky. Disclaimer: the audio line you're about to hear was recorded in the early hours of the morning, thus the voice acting is not top notch. I apologise in advance for all the cringe. But hey, at least you're probably going to laugh at it. In conclusion, the Andania class seemed to be a unique trio within the Cunard fleet. That seems to be mostly forgotten to time, though despite this, one fact will always remain true. These ships were cursed. In fact, so cursed, it makes me wonder why they were cursed.
Hey Jeff. Yeah, dude. Have you heard about the new Cunard ships? What about them? Well, I bet the big man upstairs 20 quid that they won't have a passenger career longer than a year. So I was wondering if you'd, take care of them. What's in it for me? Well, I heard the White Star Line are building a third Olympic class ship. I'll get the Germans. Excellent.